Well, let's move on and still focusing on the same matter. We're joined now by Elder Linus Ukamba, who is a former member of the Industrial Arbitration Panel and also a former head of NLC in Lagos. Thank you for coming on this morning, the Lagos office. Well, good to have you here today. Well, speaking about labor, wage, dispute, arbitration comes in at this point. Where do they meet themselves halfway?
I think that the minister talked about setting up a committee, and I don't think that he was being fair. There is a National Labour Advisory Council. It's in the law, it's in the labour law. It's constituted by the government, organized private sector, and the trade unions.
How couldn't have the minister know about this and then make such a pronouncement that we will constitute a committee? Is it because of what happened on the field?
Because it's what happened. That committee is already there. The membership are known. If you call for a meeting, NECA will send their representative, NLC will send their representative, ULC, TUC will send their representatives. And they meet there to discuss. Issue of national minimum wage is discussed at National Labour Advisory Council, and what they agree on is moved on to National Assembly and passed into law, because we choose to go through that process. Otherwise, once it becomes a legislation, any member of the House of National Assembly can raise an issue on the amendment or variation of the minimum wage. So it's not something that you want to set up a committee. You're looking for people who are going to be on that committee, and it's going to take you 5 months or 1 year to set up a committee.
Can that be interpreted as though government is not being forthright with the people?
If the partners mind their business, if government doesn't want to interfere with who comes on behalf of labor, the committee will take off. There are factions in the NLC, and the law is very clear about who represents who. So if the NLC has been split into factions, each of the factions meeting the standard required will send in representatives.
Because both of them claim that they have met different standards or different requirements. So you say if they meet it, they send representatives.
Yes.
Now, and then about minding their business. Labor, people know that they're used to agitations, speaking about certain things that they think is going on wrong, especially addressing laws or labor laws and their demands. But for Labor to have protested in the way they did, as we saw in Eagle Square, should we take it as something unusual, or that it's usual for Labor to agitate, whichever way they think is normal?
When you use this word agitation, it sometimes sounds as if it's derogatory. Demands for improvements are normal. For as a matter of fact, the government can also agitate for changes and bring labor on board. In the private sector, you find
an illegal word. If I'm before the industrial arbitration and I use the word.
Now, even in the private sector, the companies can take the initiative.
Okay.
And invite labor on board and say, look, this is the situation we find ourselves. Where do we go from here? Okay, now national minimum wage by law is supposed to be reviewed from time to time. But we make it such a big issue, move it out from the economic sphere to the political sphere. The end result is that what comes out of it oftentimes is not manageable.
Why must Labour be factionalized at this point in time? Shouldn't they have been a united front, just so that their demands are penciled down and put on the table and they are heard once and for all? This issue of Labour being faction here, faction there, is really confusing with different leaderships.
It doesn't stop the negotiations.
Really? It doesn't stop anything?
It doesn't stop negotiation. It might weaken the position of Labour. But it does not stop the negotiation from moving on. The TUC sends their representative. The NLC sends their representative. The ULC sends their representative. Government is on one side, employers are on one side. The issue is the minimum wage. And a party can meet and discuss and arrive at a minimum wage that is implementable. The state governments also hang around send also the representatives during such meetings. They don't say much, but at least they show their presence there. So the issue of minimum wage in Nigeria, we have mishandled it over a period of time, moved it out from the economic sphere to the political sphere, so that it becomes difficult for all the parties concerned to move forward. Now, if we look at minimum wage in other countries, it's based on hourly rate. The idea is to fix payments for the least or the most vulnerable set of workers because they have no skills or they have little skills. But that if they're not aided by legislation, employers may either ignore them or not pay them at all. So what does the minimum means? Is the minimum threshold which the government will not accept anybody to pay below. So that even a foreigner who comes to Nigeria to invest, if you employ a Nigerian, you are not expected to pay him below that. If you do that, that will be unfair. And for the continuous payment less than minimum wage is slave labor.
Do you think we are rife to practice that on an hourly basis?
Hourly rates have always been there.
But not with us in this
No,
country.
you see, everybody is not a salaried worker. Not all jobs are salaried jobs. Some jobs are better graded as hourly. Some jobs are better graded as hourly jobs.
That sounds nice.
Yes, because they may earn more. You have piece rates. People who move one equipment from here to here, at the end of the day, how many did you move from here to here? And you are paid by the number of pieces of work you have done. It's not difficult to calculate. It's been there all over.
Can our structure support that? Because many people think that...
We have to restructure. When you borrow systems, you choose the best practices. For instance, salaries and wages in Nigeria have been made difficult. Why should a National Assembly member earn more than a director in the ministry? What is the volume of work that he does?
How about those directors?
So, now, if you are talking of structures and systems,
those directors, some of those directors, we hear and we understand that many of them, they have with the pen the kind of things that they control, the houses, the perks that come to them. It's almost equal, if not much more, than some members of the assembly.
Yeah, when you say that, you see, the system accepts corruption as a basis of compensation. Otherwise, why should a director who is given a budget to run, why should that convert to his own personal income? Why should it be his money? Why should he take out of the budget what is not due to him? And because corruption has somehow been acceptable as a compensation plan, that is why those in National Assembly can demand percentage of the budget which they will oversee. Why should they do that? Should it be their money? Now, if you are borrowing from a system, take the best practices. Because you are in National Assembly and you can allocate money, doesn't mean that when you are doing nothing, you don't work up to 3 months, three solid months in a year, always on recess, always on break. And how do you earn more money when you are working less?